Hi everybody, my name is CORYNNE. You can call me Corey and welcome to my channel, Corey Creates. And that is a literal welcome, you all, because this is my first video. So I'm very excited to be with you and be able to share. This channel is primarily about cooking and baking, but I also want to include some of my creative endeavors like the needle arts. I do sew, and that is just one of the many things that I also have that I participate in. So I'm looking forward to sharing that with you. I am a wife of 18 years, a mom of 2 kids. I have a 15-year-old and a 10-year-old. I am also a caterer, and I am a teacher, a family consumer sciences teacher to be exact. And for those of you that are with the old school or from the old school, that is a home economics teacher. Okay, so I have been doing that for the last 8 years or so, teaching for about 15. So I am excited to be able to share that with you. You will hear me talk from time to time about some of the things that I do and teach my students. So today I wanted to start off with some basics. And one of the things that I love to use in my cooking are herbs and spices. I will show you a picture a little later of my spice cabinet, but I have about 88 or 90 little jars of spices, and some of them are my own spice blends. I just use a combination of the other spices in the cabinet and make my own spice blends. Now, you all don't get me wrong, there are plenty of spice blends in the grocery store, but I like to be able to create my own because they are very easy to modify, not only for taste, but for any kind of dietary modifications that you need to make. Plus, they are less expensive than what you will find in the store. And then finally, they're just easy, okay? They're very easy to make. If you have a set of measuring spoons, you can make spice blends. So that is what I'm gonna discuss with you today. So sit back, grab a piece of paper, and let's get started. Okay, you all, just a little bit about spices, okay? Dried herbs and spices are very readily available in just about any grocery store that you can find. I tend to get mine though from a local spice shop, okay? It's called the Soulard Farmers Market, and they have the Soulard Spice Shop in there, and they sell every kind of spice that you can think of in bulk. And I take a trip down that way. It's about 30 minutes from my house, and near downtown St. Louis, which is near where I live. I live in the St. Louis metropolitan area, and I tend to go there for my spices. There's one other spice shop in historic Main Street here in St. Charles, but you all can order spices online. Penzeys is a place that I've heard is very good to buy spices, but again, any reputable grocery store is going to have a pretty good selection of dried spices. The difference between herbs and spices, of course, is consistency usually. Dried spices, herbs are usually in like a leaf form, okay? And then spices are usually ground, like paprika, okay? It's a powder, okay? But the herbs are usually kept in a leaf form, or they've just been pulled off of the stems that they were grown on, but they all are dried. Spices are usually good anywhere from 6 months to a year. It just depends on the spice. A lot of times a smell test will let you know if it no longer has a fragrance, or if you know that you bought it more than a year ago, I would go ahead and toss it and get fresh. Spices are also relatively inexpensive. There are a few that are not, okay? Vanilla extract for one, if you're talking about baking. That is a pure vanilla extract is kind of expensive. Saffron is also one that is pretty expensive. But we're gonna just be talking about basics today. So let's talk about your measuring spoons. There are many different kinds on the market. These actually I've had all my life. Okay, when my mom moved a few years ago, I got these from her, but these are the ones that I learned to cook with. And these were the only set that she had. If you cook a lot, I would recommend you have a number of sets of measuring spoons. I do. This one is my favorite. I got these, I think at like TJ Maxx, Marshall, something like that, but they're magnetic. and they fit together. Okay, there is a half tablespoon in here instead of just the 4 basic sizes: fourth of a teaspoon, half of a teaspoon, full teaspoon, and tablespoon. Well, this set has a half of a tablespoon. So I really like that. And then it also has 2 ends where one end is skinny and one end is rounded. Okay, and they can go, that means it makes it easier for them to go in any type of spice jar. So if you have those real skinny openings, like the ones in the store, this skinny end will fit in there. And then if you have a wide one like I do in all my spice jars, they fit very well. But this is my favorite set. And then there's also this kind. I do like these 4 dried spices. This goes from a tablespoon. And if you slide it down, it goes to a teaspoon. So that's nice and very convenient. And you can just use 1 spoon for all of your measurements. I also have this set. Okay. They also kind of stick together. I have a hook on the inside of my spice cabinet that I hang my measuring spoons on. This cabinet right here, right next to the stove, is where I keep my spices. You want your spices to be close by. You're more likely to use them that way. You also want them to be just easily accessible. And like I said, I'll stick a picture in here of what my spice cabinet looks like on the inside. Okay. I also have uniform spice jars. Not everybody is going to do that. That was something I took on. I've always had these spice jars. They're only $1 a piece. So that makes them economical as well. And I'll see if I can put a link down at the bottom or just put in the description box where I got them from. But they're very convenient to use, and they have a nice wide opening so I can stick pretty much any size spoon down in there to measure out. Okay, so we're going to start off with our taco seasoning. Also, I have a small bowl that I like to use. This is one of my vintage bowls. I like to use these because they have a spout on the side. So when I'm ready to pour them in the jars, I can just use my spoon and spoon them right into the jars. So have a small bowl on hand, your measuring spoons, and then if you want to, a just regular eating spoon so you can start with. So let's go to our taco seasoning first. All right, let's get started on our taco seasoning. I have everything out that I need, including I need a teaspoon and a tablespoon for this recipe. I also wanted to show you guys this cute little measuring spoon that I have that I use quite often. It has a tablespoon and a teaspoon on one side, and then you flip it over and it's got a half of a teaspoon and a fourth of a teaspoon. So I could very easily use that if I wanted to. If I want to be exact with my measurements, I have a straight edge. So when I put my seasoning in here, I can scrape off the excess if I choose. And then I also keep a paper towel nearby. That way I can wipe off my measuring spoon and use it in another spice without having to necessarily get another spoon and keep washing it. Okay. I also have one of my vintage bowls that I like to use to mix my spices because they have a spout on the side. So when I'm finished with the blends, I can just pour them into a container. Okay, so let's go through our ingredients for this recipe. We need a teaspoon each of salt and pepper. That's what I keep in these containers. And again, you can adjust the amount of sodium that you put in any of your spice blends. I need 3 tablespoons of chili powder. I need 2 tablespoons of cumin, 2 tablespoons of paprika. You can use regular paprika or Hungarian paprika, which is the same thing as regular. And then if you want a little extra kick, you can put a little smoked paprika instead if you like. So 2 tablespoons of paprika, 1 tablespoon of garlic powder, 2 teaspoons of onion powder, and 2 teaspoons of oregano. Okay, I am going to add a little bit of cayenne. I'm going to say it's not even going to be a full half teaspoon. I'm just going to take half of a teaspoon and toss it in there. I got kids, so I want it to be a little bit spicy, but not enough that they're going to be talking about, ooh, Mom, my mouth burns. Okay, so let's go ahead and start measuring. Let's start with our salt, garlic powder, and onion powder. I always like to measure out my lighter ingredients first That way I don't accidentally transfer a dark spice into my container. Okay, so for my salt, I needed 1 teaspoon. For the onion powder, I need 2 teaspoons. And with most spice blends, you can just shake it and get it down as much as you can. And then for the garlic powder, I just need 1 tablespoon. Done with those. Okay, for the next thing, I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna measure out the oregano next. 2 teaspoons of oregano. I've got cumin, 2 tablespoons of cumin. Now, cumin can be a bit pungent. I have seen some taco seasoning blends that had more cumin than chili powder. I definitely do not prefer that. Outside of taco seasoning and a couple other Indian dishes that I make, I'm not a big fan of cumin, so I tend to go lighter with the cumin. Paprika, we need 2 tablespoons of that. And you notice now I'm with my red seasoning, so I'm not gonna have to worry about getting any of that in my salt or any of my light colored spices. And then finally, the chili powder. Okay, you need more chili powder than anything. 3 tablespoons. And then I'm gonna add just a little bit of cayenne. Not even a full teaspoon. I want this flavor, but I don't want too much heat. And then just mix. If you get a mason jar, you can add all this to a mason jar and just shake it, okay? You can double this. This is just probably a little more than a cup. So this will last me till spring, okay? I make something that I need taco seasoning for maybe once or twice a month, okay? So this will definitely last me until spring. And how I would use this, 2 to 3 tablespoons in your ground beef, chicken, whatever it is you're making, and add about a 1/4 cup of water and let that cook in there, okay? Or you just use it just like you would any other taco seasoning spice. 2 to 3 tablespoons is what you would need, okay? All right, let's move on to our next blend. Okay, well, for our last 2 spice blends, I want to go over that I'm going to use a ratio instead of actual measurements. So what that means is I'm going to tell you how many parts you need for your recipe. So for instance, in this next recipe, the Cajun Creole seasoning, you need 3 parts of salt and 5 parts of paprika, okay? You get to determine what measuring tool you plan to use. So for the sake of this video, I'm going to use a tablespoon. That's going to be my part, okay? Normally, when I would make this, I'd be making it in a much larger quantity, so my part would be 1/4 cup, okay? So for each of the measurements, I just multiply how many parts by whatever measuring tool I'm planning to use, okay? And for the sake of this video, I'm going to use a tablespoon. So all of these ingredients, it is parts or tablespoons, okay? And then you can adjust that to whatever you want. So let's get started. All right, you all, Cajun Creole seasoning. Again, I used a tablespoon for each one of these measurements as my part, okay? So let me run you through what we're going to use, and then we'll start adding them to my bowl. In my small bowl, I already have 3 parts or 3 tablespoons of kosher salt, okay? To that, I'm going to add 5 parts of paprika. You could either use smoked or Hungarian. I have used a combination of both. So I think I had 2 tablespoons of smoked and 3 tablespoons of Hungarian or regular, okay? For the next ones, these are 2 parts. So I have 2 parts basil, 2 parts oregano, 2 parts onion powder, 2 parts garlic powder, okay? And then finally I have 1 part, okay? So for my parts, I have 1 part thyme, 1 part white pepper, 1 part cayenne, and actually I reduced that a little bit. So instead of a full tablespoon, I have maybe a teaspoon, okay? And then 1 part black pepper, okay? White pepper is simply made with white peppercorns, okay? So now I'm gonna add all of these ingredients to my bowl. Pepper, a little bit of cayenne, because like I said, you can also substitute red pepper flakes if you choose. The white pepper, thyme, 2 parts garlic powder, 2 parts onion powder, 2 parts oregano, and 2 parts basil, okay? And then I'm just gonna take my regular spoon and just mix that up. This would be a good amount for a quart size jar, not a quart size, pint size jar if you were using a mason jar. Some people, that's what they use. They just use all mason jars to store their spices, okay? I have some of these that I still use, okay? And I've got some bigger sizes. This one will need a bigger size. So here's my container that I use for my Cajun Creole. And you'll see how this spout works out nicely, keeps it all from going on the countertop. So just add this. Has a very pungent smell, and I use this in my Cajun chicken and shrimp pasta. Actually, I put sausage in that too. And then sometimes I'll just sprinkle this on some chicken breasts and grill them. Okay. There is my Cajun seasoning. Make sure you put these in an airtight container. Some people like to add a little cornstarch. Okay. I'm not a fan. I go through them too quickly. So I don't really need it. Let's move on to our last seasoning blend. All right, you all, we are back with our final spice blend. This is a sweet barbecue chili rub, okay? It is brown sugar based, okay? But you'll see some of the same ingredients repeated again. And it's amazing how if you change out 1 or 2 ingredients, you got a completely different spice rub, okay? So I'm gonna give you this in parts or a ratio this time as well, okay? Just like the last recipe. So for this recipe, we need 3 parts kosher salt, and I am using tablespoon as my part, okay? To that, I'm gonna add 1 part of cayenne. Again, I have reduced that a little bit because of my children, so it's probably not quite a teaspoon, okay? I have 1 part of Old Bay seasoning, okay? Yes, it's going in the barbecue rub. I have 1 part smoked paprika. Because this is a barbecue recipe, I'm going with smoked. You can use regular, that's totally fine. 1 part chili powder, 1 part black pepper, 1 part garlic powder, 1 part onion powder, 1 part thyme, and finally my sugar base, which is 8 parts brown sugar. And I know that 8 tablespoons is half a cup, so I have measured it in half a cup. I also add, and this spice blend, you all, you can definitely modify and add to. I like to add to mine, and I'm not gonna do it today, but normally I would, Thai seasoning that I get from my local spice shop. And then this is an orange chipotle seasoning that I get from there as well, that I like to add a part of that as well. You can add jalapeno powder if you want it a little more spicy. You could add red pepper flakes. Okay, so let's go ahead and get this one mixed up. Old Bay, that little shake of cayenne, my half a cup or 8 parts of brown sugar, and you can use dark in place, my paprika, chili powder, black pepper, thyme, and you all will see me use a lot of thyme. It's a very versatile spice. Onion powder, and garlic powder. Okay, And it's super important that this particular spice, that you most definitely put it in an airtight container. Otherwise, that brown sugar will seize up, okay, and become hard little pellets, okay? How you soften brown sugar, if it has gotten that way, it's still good, okay? Obviously, you could add it to liquids and it'll dissolve just fine, but if you need it to stay in powdered form, you can put a slice of bread, okay? Whatever kind of bread, white bread, wheat bread, whatever kind you eat, you can add that to the container that you're storing your brown sugar in. Leave it in there overnight. Next day, your brown sugar will be back soft, okay? You can also put it in the microwave on 30-second increments if you need it right away, but I tend to do the white bread trick, okay, if I need to soften up my brown sugar, okay? A few lumps in this is fine, okay? And I will be showing you guys some recipes with all of these spices. So let's package all these up for storage and finish up. All right, you all, we're at the home stretch. We've got our 3 seasoning blends that we have packaged up. Also wanted to make sure I mentioned, when you store your dried herbs and spices, make sure you store them in a sealed container and in a cool, dry place. So inside a cabinet, you want to limit the amount of sun exposure that they receive, okay? So we've got our Cajun Creole here, taco seasoning, and our BBQ rub. And these I used to store in the same size jar as this, but I used so much of it, so I went to a little bigger size. And again, I think I got all of these at Hobby Lobby, so I'll be sure to put that down in the description box if I can find a link to it specifically. So that's it for today, you all. I hope you were encouraged by what you saw today to come back. I'm looking forward to sharing not only the recipes that go along with these spice blends, but just a lot of different things that we've got going on over here at Corey Creates. So thank you for spending a little time with me. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I hope to see you in the very near future. Be blessed, you all.